Hello musicians, it's almost time for another member challenge over at Classical Guitar Corner Academy. Now we host one of these member challenges every season, and for the fall member challenge we're focusing on developing speed. Now speed is not the only technical tool that you need to develop or master, but it is an important one. There are certain repertoire pieces that require a level of speed to be able to perform well. And so technically, in terms of scales, arpeggios, ornaments, it's important to develop that tool of being able to play fast. And it's often one of the most asked questions that we get. How do I speed this up? Well, the first thing that you need to do to develop speed is actually, especially with scales, to develop synchronization of the two hands. So synchronization is really about legato, connecting notes together without cutting them short. If one finger gets to the string, or one hand rather, gets to the string too early or too late than the other hand, then we're going to interrupt the connection between notes. So, for instance, if my left hand is not down when my right hand plays, then we're going to get a buzz. Or if I put my right hand finger down too early before the next note, then we're going to cut the note short. So the goal of legato playing is to connect two notes together with no gap between them whatsoever. They're perfectly connected and smooth. So I've developed a set of synchronization exercises that will help you get both of your hands in sync with one another. And so let's take a look at the sheet now. So first off, I've given you a set of ascending exercises that increase the number of notes that you're going to play together. So to start off with, I want you to just connect two notes together at a quarter note tempo. So what that means is, if your tempo is 1, 2, and take it nice and slowly to start with. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, rest. 4. 1, 2, rest. 4. Those rests are going to give you time to reset. And it's important to have little breaks between these repetitions so that you're not wearing your hands out and increasing tension in the hand. However, with each new note that's added, you have a smaller rest. So the second set has 3 notes, but only 1 rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. When you're playing these exercises, it's important not to leave fingers down, but instead to place a finger and then place the next finger exactly at the time that the right hand finger plays. And then again, the next finger exactly as the right hand finger plays. So you want to play through the string with the right hand. You don't want to prepare early like you would with staccato. Instead, as you alternate the fingers, play straight through the string without stopping the string at all. So you may want to start the exercise, in fact, with just playing open strings to work on that in the right hand. Instead of this, or even this, play through the string. So there's a perfect smooth legato connection between those notes. So when you get to the third little set, you have 4 notes with no rest. So this time, play through the string, back to the first note. Okay, now the repeats, the reason I've put repeats in here is I want you to build up stamina, which is also a very important part of building up speed. Being able to play fast in short bursts is a start, but in order to connect notes together into a longer scale line, for instance, we really need to build up stamina. So that's what this is doing. You have 2 rests to start with, and then only 1 rest, and then you have no rest. Then we're going to step it up 1 level further, and we're going to do 8th notes. So if that was our tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then our eighth notes will be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and moving on, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 From there, we're going to shorten it even further and play 16th notes. So if this is our eighth note, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then the 16th notes will be 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 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 And the goal here again is to connect each of those notes so there's no gap. We don't want staccato, it should be nice and smooth, connecting each note with no gap. Now, after you've done that, I'd like you to go back to the beginning, but this time remove all rests. So you'll start again with quarter notes, 1, 2, back to the beginning, 2, and then add a note. And then add another note after you repeat, Then to eighth notes. That's the goal of the exercise. Now, I want you to do exactly the same thing at the bottom of the page, starting at measure 10, descending. And so here, it's the same process. We're going to play 1, 2, rest, rest, 1, 2. But again, I want you to remember, don't keep fingers down on the strings. So a lot of times this is a helpful thing, especially when we're first starting out, to keep all the fingers down on the strings, so you just lift fingers when they're needed. For synchronization, however, if you're only lifting, you're not really training the fingers to be in sync with one another. And so we want to actually lift one finger and put the next one down at the exact same time that the right hand finger plays. Okay, moving on to page 2, we have crossing strings. Now this is exactly the same exercise. This time, however, we're removing all of the rests. And so it's a little bit more of a challenge. We're stepping up the challenge with each one of these exercises. We're, again, starting out with quarter notes, then we'll move up to eighth notes, and finally to 16th notes. And we have ascending and descending. Now you'll note that I have written out the fingering 1, 2, 1, 2, all the way from 6th string to 1st string and back. So it sounds something like this. A little bit of a faster tempo this time. And then back down. And I won't play the whole thing. Then we're going to add another finger. So just as we did before, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Notice how my left hand fingers are not staying down, they lift each time, right? Connecting each note as smoothly as possible. And then back down again. And then we're going to add a 4th finger. And so on. And then from there, we'll take it to 8th notes. Add a 3rd finger, add a 4th finger, add 8th notes. And then 16th notes. And then then again, add a third finger, add a fourth finger. And as you're doing each of these exercises, it's really important to remember that your tempo will not be the tempo I just played it. It will be your tempo. It's the tempo that you can play these comfortably, keeping each note connected so that the hands are synchronized. If you're noticing that if you play too fast and you can't quite get a smooth connection between the notes because either the right hand finger is playing too early or the left hand finger is getting down too early, then your hands are not quite in sync and you need to slow the tempo down so that you're perfectly in control of that synchronization. That's very important. In order to develop speed, we first have to have synchronization. So we're actually not intending to play these fast. That's not the goal just yet. Synchronization is kind of the bedrock that will allow you to then develop speed. So don't rush ahead and try to play these too quickly. You want to play them at a tempo that's comfortable where you can play with both hands in perfect synchronization. And then finally, exactly the same exercise as ascending, but now we're doing descending. So 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Add a finger. 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. Again, not leaving fingers on the strings, but placing them as you go. And then eighth notes. Then 16th notes. And that wasn't exactly perfectly in sync, which means I might need to work on that a little bit. Because that first note, I didn't get the one down exactly when my I finger played. Speaking of the right hand, when you're working on the cross string exercises, you'll note that if you start with the I finger, for instance, when you get to the top and you come back down, you'll have a good string cross. I am, and then I am with every one, you have a good string cross. If you start with M, however, then you'll have a bad string cross. And all I mean by a bad string cross is when we go from the first string playing with I down to an M finger on the second string, it's awkward for the fingers. It's much easier and more natural for the fingers to do M on the first string and I on the next string down. So it's good to work out bad string crosses, to practice them so that you become familiar with them and they're not quite so awkward. Usually, however, we try to avoid them when we can. When you put the third finger in, however, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, by the time you get to the top, you're gonna run into a bad string cross. Even if you land an I on the, an M on the top string, so that would be M-I-M. So M-I-M, M-I-M. No, it changes every time, right? So M-I-M, I-M-I, M-I-M, I-M-I, M-I-M, I-M-I. Notice you have a bad string cross there. So then your next one, however, M-I-M will be a good string cross. I-M-I, right there. That M to I will be a good string cross. So when you have 3 notes per string, you're going to have a bad string cross with every other string. Just to keep that in mind as you're working on the crossing strings exercises. However, with every other exercise, I want you to use MI or IM right hand alternation. Unless, that is, you really want to work on synchronizing your left and right hands, specifically focusing on M and A or A and I. So you can use other right hand fingerings. That's why I didn't give you any here. The goal is to make sure that whatever fingering you use in the right hand, it's perfectly in sync with the left hand. And exactly as the left hand finger goes down, that's when your right hand finger should be playing. So they're really quite simple exercises, but they're very important for moving into developing speed. So I hope you find them helpful. And if you have any questions, please just shoot me an email at support@classicalguitarcorner.com. Thanks, I'll see you around.